Are there food vendors or venues exempt from licensing? Yes, not every food vendor is required to have a license. Over the years, several exemptions have been written into Minnesota statutes. After watching this video, you will be able to recognize if a vendor is exempt from licensing at your event. Let's review who's exempt from licensure. The Church Lady Bill exempts faith-based organizations from licensing at weddings, fellowship meals, or funerals conducted in a building constructed and primarily used for religious worship. Exemption also applies to any food served at fundraiser or community events conducted in the building or on the grounds of a faith-based organization. A volunteer or manager must be trained in food safety and oversee the event to ensure safe food handling practices are followed. Exemptions do not apply to faith-based schools, daycares, faith-based organizations at county fairs, Minnesota State Fair, or at festivals not held on the grounds of the faith-based organization. Exempt organizations can choose to apply for a food license. Charitable organizations that are nonprofit, tax-exempt organizations selling candy or having a bake sale as a fundraising activity are exempted from food licensure. An adult needs to oversee the event and ensure safe food handling practices are followed. Minnesota Statutes Part 28A.15 exempts vendors from licensing who sell non-potentially hazardous foods at community events or farmers markets. Non-potentially hazardous foods are foods that do not need temperature control, like breads, baked goods, baking mixes, candies, and dry soup mixes. Sales are limited to $5,000 per year. Vendors utilizing this exemption must post signs stating these products are homemade and not subject to state inspection. Minnesota Statutes Part 28A.15 Subdivision 10, called the Pickle Bill, allows for home canned and home processed foods with a pH acidity measurement of 4.6 or below, or a water activity of 0.85 or below, to be sold at farmers markets, community and social events organized by nonprofit organizations. The Pickle Bill forces individuals to know which characteristics of specific properties of their food make it safe and not potentially hazardous. You can request vendors to show documentation that these parameters have been met. Examples include pickled vegetables and fruit with a pH of less than or equal to 4.6, vinegars, barbecue sauces, and naturally fermented foods such as sauerkraut. Foods not allowed in this exemption include fish, pickled eggs, meat and vegetables, and specific fruits. Homemade jams and jellies are exempted in statute. Exemption applies to sales of limited to $5,000 per year. Vendors using an exemption must post a sign stating these canned goods are homemade and not subject to state inspection. Product of the farm. In Minnesota, the farmer's right to sell his or her own product is protected, but there are restrictions regarding the amount and type of processing that can be done. Fruits and vegetables cannot be processed in any way. Cutting, chopping, or washing to make the fruit or vegetable ready to eat is not allowed. When selling eggs, poultry, or any meat item off the farm, individuals need to speak with their area food inspector to ensure all the proper steps have been taken to be in compliance. In 2014, the Minnesota legislature passed a bill providing a definition of farmers markets and permitting food product sampling and demonstrations at farmers markets and community events. Licensing exemption for participants of chili or soup cook-off events are also now in statute. But remember, even though a food vendor at your event is exempted from the licensing process, they are not exempt from following safe food handling practices at your event. Your event attendees expect and have the right to expect the food they buy is safe to eat. If you see unsafe food handling practices, be sure to address the issues with the vendor. The contents for this module were provided by the Minnesota Department of Health and the Minnesota Department of Agriculture's Food Manager Certification Instructor Workshop Committee.